Hi, and welcome to another edition of Pandemic Musings. This is episode 10, and the title of this one is that we're building our own prison going forward. I'm going to publish this on YouTube as well, so please, if you see it there, do hit the subscribe button, the notification button, so that I can bring you more content. It's also available on Instagram. So why do I say we're building our own prison? It's because of three things, really. The first is our collective silence. Of course, there's a very vocal minority, of which I'm one, but the vast majority of people are silent about the circumstances in which we're living at the moment. Secondly, we're building our own prison because of our compliance with increasingly egregious claims on our liberties and our sovereignty as human beings, right down to our bodily sovereignty. Thirdly, I believe that all of this is based on a profound misunderstanding of the nature of what our lives themselves are. Now, whatever I say, because we're different, we will have different points of view. And I think the most important thing is that we're able to share our points of view on this. So do let me know. In fact, the most important thing about this broadcast is what you think. Do have your say in the comments and so on beneath. So, why do I say that silence is a cause of us building our own prisons? Now, nobody willingly builds their own prison, a place in which they will become incarcerated, a place in which they lose all their sovereignty and their natural human rights. We have been goaded in this direction. However, silence over the way in which we're being goaded and slowly edged towards the edge of that incarceration cliff, if you like. Silence is a form of giving permission, and in all of universal life, if you give permission for something, you lose your right to have a say. So the silence happens in various ways. See, for example, culturally in the West, in Britain, it said you never discuss politics or religion. Just unpack that a little bit. Religion is the means by which our worldview is formed. Religion deeply influences the way we look at who we are, how we are, our purposes here, and so on. And the religion could be an organized religion. One of the major ones, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and so on, Buddhism, and the others, or atheism, or none of the above. That is also another religion, albeit an agnostic one. So politics also is the means by which we divide the resources of whatever state in which we live and organize our affairs. So if these two crucial items are off the table for discussion, my goodness, whoever taught us those memes, whoever taught us those values, found a means there and there of enslaving us, so that if we're going down the wrong track, there is nothing that can be done about it. So silence is often the result of somebody brainwashing us into finding it inappropriate to express our individuality, our worth, our values, our anxieties, our aspirations, our fears. The very things that show that we are alive are dumbed down from us. We're brainwashed into not reviewing, examining, or expressing them. A person who is prepared to stay silent is a person who has been goaded into taking the shovel that they've been given, digging a hole in the ground so that they can be buried in it. You're building your own prison. Secondly, compliance. The thing about compliance is that it's subtle, it's a very subtle thing. I remember the scene from The Godfather, I think it was the first one, when Don Corleone, that was the Marlon Brando Godfather, just so that you can picture it. So many of us have seen this. This film is so iconic. Where um, somebody comes along to see him, and he is, I think, he's an undertaker or something, and something awful has happened. Something absolutely terrible has happened to his child. He's been to see the police, he's been to see the judges. Nothing has happened. So he goes along to see the godfather, the mafia godfather, the head of this incredibly powerful crime family, for justice. Of course, the issue is sorted for him. And later on in the film, we see what he does for the godfather. But the quote that stuck in my mind was when Don Corleone, starring, represented by Marlon Brando, gets up and says, what was the quote? He said something like, one day, and that day may never come, I will look to you to do me a service. Till that time, consider my service to you a gift. So giving justice to the man's son who was very badly treated and very unjustly treated had a price. That price lay in the future. And it shows very clearly that when a person is beholden to somebody, that's the end of their freedom. Bribes can come in all manner and types. One of the most effective ones is privilege. If you give a person a privilege of some kind, they are loath to lose that privilege. It could be material, it could be status, it could be an unfair advantage in any decision making around social affairs. Racial privilege is just such a privilege. Give a person that privilege, and they are forever beholden to whatever system, whatever agency, whatever power conferred that privilege. Gender privilege is another. Give a person that privilege, and they will be beholden to whatever system, whatever entity, whatever institutions, whatever cultural values gave them that privilege. They are thus corrupted for life and in a position to apply moral relativism, i.e., hypocrisy, in any situation. Why? Because they took the king's shilling. They were bribed into that position so that they can now no longer tell the truth. And the examples of that are too many to mention. So, really, bribery of any kind leads to compliance, and you've got to be very careful the bribes that you've taken and the compliance that it leads to. Thirdly, and this is perhaps the underlying or most important one of all of these three ways in which we wind up digging our own graves. It's a pity that the most important things that we should know about life are absolutely off the curriculum. In fact, now I observe it, I realize that they are off the curriculum for the purposes of making us much more malleable, controllable, and leadable as a population. Doesn't matter how elite the educational institution you will go to, nobody teaches you this fundamental fact of life, that your environment is a shadow of yourself. Yourself in terms of your attitudes, your beliefs, your behaviors, your spoken word, and ultimately your actions. And so, when we find ourselves in an environment of conflict, it's always the other guy's fault. We don't understand that on some level we are complicit with that situation of conflict, either by being too docile or being too belligerent. At any rate, the thing that causes conflict is an ultra egoic state. And by the way, egoic states manifest on two spectrums. At the top, you have anger and control and manipulation. At the bottom, you have fear and kind of tremulousness, an inability to stand up for yourself. And it could be caused by all kinds of things, just because you don't know the worth or the value of your life, and nobody taught you this. So, the question of the value of your life is crucial in us complying with actions that lead to our collective downfall. If you know that you, as a human being, encapsulate the entire worth of the universe, nobody's going to tell you that you're on a gender basis, on a class basis, on a racial basis, on a sexual orientation basis, or whatever, that you are inferior to somebody else. It is so self-evident that your confidence in manifesting this will help those who don't understand that to evaporate. But so it is that they need censorship, extraordinary powers of the media to confuse you and I so that we don't know our actual worth. And whereas in the old days, people had this kind of binary view that there was us, which is basically people of European origin, and the others, which is people of non-European origin. What this pandemic has taught us is that human life is human life. If you see what they're doing to Australians who are basically ersatz, Brits, and now people from all over the world in that country, the abuses they are having to endure in the name of giving up their liberty for their protection from this quote unquote pandemic, it's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Although I do ask myself, if the same was happening in, say, an African country, whether people would be rubbing their hands, kind of wringing their hands and saying, it's pathetic. So here we have it. It's really, really simple. Somebody is goading us all to be silent, to comply, and not to understand the value and worth of our lives. So actually, under those circumstances, even a person like me making these assertions is a cause of irritation and annoyance. I'm talking about one of the taboos. This is almost a religious issue now. But the truth must be told, because it is exactly where we're heading. I see people on Instagram or Facebook, and they look so bright and bubbly and this and that. I'm like, excuse me, which planet did you just come from? Zog? Because on planet Earth, right now, in the UK, we got food shortages in the supermarkets. Okay, this is one of the G6 countries. We got fuel shortages. Energy prices just went up. Energy companies are going broke. All of this is causing massive social dislocation. And guess what the media is doing? The media is stirring it all up. Under these circumstances, this is not the time to remain silent. This is not the time to comply with all the little rules and so on, which keep us in our boxes and isolated from each other. This is the time for us to speak frankly with each other, as I'm asking you to comment on this video. Because if we don't, we are absolutely creating our own jail and likely throwing the key out of the window so we can't free ourselves later. Thanks so much for watching. As ever, please share your thoughts about what I'm saying. Have a great week ahead.